Good afternoon. Welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a beautiful, sunny Sunday afternoon, early afternoon. I was out in the shop early this morning using some of my precious personal project time, making a guide fence for my green bead roller that I worked on last week. And no, this video is not 100% about bead rollers, I promised. It's more about the ebb and flow of projects. And projects, in this case personal projects, come in all shapes and sizes. I have a lot of large projects that I will always have long-term large projects. That's what makes me me. If I'm not thinking about how I'm going to accomplish the next step, I would probably go nuts. That's always working in the back of my mind. The next logical step. Sometimes, if your goal is to go racing, for instance, and you're starting with nothing, the project may include the big scope of it, building a shop, building a truck, building a trailer, building all the parts associated. It may take you a decade. I know from experience. You learn to be, I learned this a long time ago when I built my first race car. It teaches you to be a lot of things. Broke, for one, you learn how to live broke, but seriously, you have to learn how to be, I wouldn't say an electrician, but you need to know something about electricity because you'll end up having to wire in an outlet for your welder or, being involved in it somehow, even if you have a friend help you. I don't recommend you go rip into your electrical box if you know nothing about electrical stuff, but I am living proof so far that you can buy a basic manual, which I did when the big box stores opened up around here. The home improvement stores, they had a how-to section. I knew nothing about electricity, only that it's invisible and it scares me. But I read the book, and next thing you know, I'm doing simple home wiring. I'm actually wired my shop. Not for everybody, but it was a necessity. I had, fortunately, the guidance. A friend of mine is an electrician, had his own company, and not only did he donate a lot of supplies to this garage out of the kindness of his heart, but he also would answer my questions if I had any, and he would and did inspect it when I was done, tell me what I did wrong or could have done better, and so on. Having completed two relatively big projects, if you will. They took almost a week of my, again, personal time. The time I get to do what I want to do. And that's precious. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I stuck with it. Got over the hump because all projects start with enthusiasm. They start with an idea. And when it actually starts, rolling forward, moving forward, it's nothing but enthusiasm. I remember, again, 3 weeks ago now, maybe a month, 3 weeks I think, when I went up to my buddy's house and he'd cut out the shape of the first bead roller I built. I came back, I was all excited, I couldn't wait to get to it, and then the reality of the project and everything required to do so. I mean, you know this going in, but until you actually start doing it, for me, all projects start to work on my patience, if you will, when I have to do repetitive things like boring those big holes without a good way to do it. Now, if you can't learn from that, I've ordered some annular cutters, and they should have been here Friday. Maybe they'll be here tomorrow or the next day. And next time, that should provide a much faster way to drill a giant hole. So I bought them all the way up to 2 inch. So in the future, hopefully that solves an area where I learned that I was lacking, and I have an average assortment of drill bits and hole saws and stuff like that, which work most of the time really well. Out of necessity, I became a pretty decent drill sharpener. I don't have an actual drill doctor. I just do it by eye on the bench grinder, and sometimes a cut really good, and sometimes you got to do it again. But hell, the drill bit's that long. Just keep working at it. But repetitive steps in a project tend to, well, that's where the hump starts, I guess, because all projects have a hump. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but we have to get over it. There'll be some frustration and try some problem solving every time, especially if you don't have a set of plans. If you're building a project from a set of plans, somebody has gone through the arduous process of seeing it front to back, and as long as they have covered all the steps and communicated them to you in the instructions, well, that's one thing. But that rarely, if ever, happens with me. I'm always looking at something, and I gotta, in my brain, know how I'm gonna do it. Not always the best way, but it is what it is. That's the way I'm wired and how I'm going to do it. And then after the fact, I realized there could have been better ways to do it. And again, all part of the project flow. Another necessary step of some projects is mock-up. And mocking up again and again, trying to make something fit or function. It doesn't give you the instant gratification, like for instance, framing a wall for the garage. Pretty much you move forward all the time. It's a lot of work, a lot of measuring, a lot of know-how, but you don't go backwards unless you make a mistake. Whereas if you're fitting something up or trying to make a certain feature of your project do something, that's going to take time, and you get into the groove and over again. And when you get to what is for me the fun part, painting and final assembly, I don't even enjoy the painting, but it's a pretty fast-moving, rewarding part of the project. And final assembly and the add-ons afterwards is where I really shine. And that's where, I don't know what percentage I want to call it, but a large part of my enjoyment comes from that part of it. I'm really good at final assembly, mostly because I enjoy it. The reality of some projects is you won't see them to the end. You will either sell them, trade them, seldom give up on them. I guess that's part of giving up on them. But for me, if I get rid of a project, it's because I'm trying to probably fund something else. I mentioned a few months ago, there was a small window of opportunity. I thought that I might be able to get a crew cab dually pickup project that I had back, because I got rid of that when I was trying to sell everything I could that I didn't necessarily need, because I wanted to buy a bigger tractor. So I had a goal, and only one way to get there: get rid of things that I didn't necessarily need at the moment. And I've gotten rid of probably 5 or 6 projects in my life, and they kind of haunt me a little bit. But in each case, I was going for something better. Recently, the 2 Novas. They went to good homes, and the people that have them are doing wonderful things with them. I got something I completely unexpected, the 55 Chevys, something I always wanted, but was never even going to allow myself to think about owning them. Didn't think it was a possibility, but in the process, projects had to be sacrificed, and sometimes that's just reality. When you're moving forward in a project and you have just a rough plan in your head and you're just winging it, and that was this morning out here at 6:30, I wanted to build an adjustable stop for the green bead roller, a fence, to a guide fence. So if you want to bead roll in a straight line, I wanted an adjustable fence. I'm going to add a table. Typically this style of bead roller, the adjustable fence has a T-handle underneath. That's not going to work with the table I'm putting on it. So fortunately it's box tubing, so I'm able to go on the top. Not as attractive. It's going to leave marks every time I tighten the T-handle down, but it's a tool. It's okay. When I build a fence for the other one, it's going to go in the side, and there'll be a T-handle on the side, but I'm not necessarily talking about that. But my point is, I had an idea. The very first step in my little hydraulic metal brake, I tried to make the U-shaped saddle that I showed you a picture of it outside drying. I've got it to the point of being painted now. And because of the constrictions in that little metal brake, the bend is not the same on both sides. One is squarer than the other. And I should have stopped right there, but I didn't want to waste the metal. In hindsight, I would cut the pieces and weld them together. My TIG welding setup's right here. I could have buzzed right through that. Everything would have been perfectly square. And the result would have been better because the fact that those two bends weren't the same only snowballed in the project when I got to the point where I got it all welded together and it functions. It's not symmetrical perfectly because of that first bend. The first thing I did turned out to be a mistake, and it affected the entire project. If I was building this for somebody else and was gonna, get paid for it, I would have to build another one. I wouldn't give it to anybody else. Just looking at it's gonna bug me. I know it doesn't jump out at you when it's on the machine. You're not even gonna notice probably unless you really study it. But it's wrong. I know it's wrong. It's not critical. I'm not 100% happy with my project today, but I'm gonna use it until such time as I absolutely feel the need to build another one, and that's probably not gonna happen again. It's a tool, it's gonna get beat up and scratched, and it's wrong, and I know it, but it's not a safety issue or anything like that, so you gotta learn to let it be. And that is the hardest part for me. If you watch my channel, I'm pretty hard on myself. But at least I know what I would do different. And that's, again, if you don't learn from your mistakes, that is where the tragedy lies. So next time, when I'm going to build something like this, and it's coming right up, I'm going to do one for the other one, I won't try to bend something that long. Now, the other half, I had to build it in two pieces, and I'll show it to you before the video's over if the paint's dry. The way the bead roll is built, I had to build the top part that has the T-handle that you tighten up to hold it in place. I had to make that removable. I almost welded it in place where I realized that it wouldn't fit on the machine if I did that, so I had to go back to the metal brake. This time my sides weren't as long and it clears. I knew this from bending some other stuff the other day, that I could bend a U with sides that are 1.5 inches long, no problem, but when they're this long, they interfere with the machine and it caused me trouble. So, live and learn. The rolling stand I built for the last bead roller came out pretty well. So I'll give myself credit there, that works nice. I just built the square tubing piece and bolted the whole bead roller right to it. So here's my adjustable stop that I'm complaining about. And yes, it looks pretty good. I think functional. It'll be fine. I had some considerations to take in. Obviously this stuff's in the way. I needed to come out actually to the dies, so it had to stop back here, hence the rods. And I needed to make the top removable for obvious reasons, plus to get it out of the way because it does take up a lot of throat if you're not using it. But the welding was nice. There's a lot of positives here. I put a little rubber thing on to hopefully not beat the paint up too bad. But again, it's a tool. But is it perfect? No, not even close. But live and learn. And that's what it's all about. So the moral of the story is let the projects teach you. I credit stopping my young life to build a race car. I mean, I was still living, but a good part of my time and money went towards building my first race car in my parents' garage. And I built a truck, I bought a trailer. It took me a couple years to accomplish that the first time. But again, like I say, I had to learn how to weld, fabricate. Eventually, I had to dabble in some electrical stuff. Eventually, with the help of my brother, I learned about carpentry on this project, my big shop. If you don't learn, it wouldn't even be worthwhile to even attempt a project, I suppose, unless your ultimate goal is only to have whatever the finished product is. But it came in really handy in my life because if you work in the automotive industry, you're usually pretty well pigeonholed. And I was headed down that way. I went to 2 transmission shops, so that's kind of stands by itself. Worked at a Chrysler dealership, but we only worked on cars and a couple pickup trucks. So when I went to work for a large municipality, you were supposed to be able to do anything. Literally, cars, trucks, anything, equipment, small engines. Typically, if you have a small engine guy, that's what he does. He doesn't work on cars. He doesn't work on big trucks. He doesn't work on loaders and excavators and stuff like that. So the more well-rounded you can be by, believe it or not, doing projects and not farming it out to have other people do it for you, let the struggle happen, let the learning happen, and in the long run, I feel I'm better off for it. So, and you might be too. So, again, it's not for everybody, and there's nothing wrong if you have the wherewithal to pay somebody to do it. That is a good position to be in as well. But I'm sure in some part of your life you're still doing everything I just mentioned. So, have a great day. It's Sunday, and I'll catch you in a couple days.